Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you one of the most hilarious annotated Scrabble games I've ever seen. Now, as you'll see, this game is funny not only for the actual plays that are made, but also for the commentary and the annotations. Before I jump in, it's important to point out that this game was played using the Collins or International Dictionary. So there's going to be a lot of words in this game that are valid in Collins, but not in the North American Dictionary, so I'll do my best to point these out whenever they come up throughout the game. Now, the players in this game are Christian and Herianto. Christian is the one who's annotating this game and commenting. I actually wasn't particularly familiar with either of these players, but I looked them up on the Wespa or International site, and it looks like Christian is rated about 1600 and Herianto is rated about 1100. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right in. The game starts off in a fairly unexciting way, with Christian playing the word levy for 20 points. However, the lack of excitement would be very short-lived, as on this turn, Herianto already has a couple of cool bingos available. He could play the word lithoed, L-I-T-H-O-E-D, above levy, making E-L and D-E, and he also has the cool 8-letter bingo of holy tide through the Y in levy. So a couple of fun options there for Herianto. However, instead of playing either of the bingos, he makes the word head, H-E-D, for 14 points. Now, this play is not great because, of course, besides scoring about 60 less than the bingos, he gets rid of the E and the D, which are his two best bingo tiles, and he keeps I-L-O-T, which is a kind of clunky 4-tile leave with a bunch of one-pointers that don't go well together. Oh, and besides that, there's another problem. Head is not a word, and Christian challenges it off the board. So not only does Herianto miss the bingos, but he plays a phony 3 to start off the game. So fairly inauspicious start for Herianto, but maybe he'll be able to redeem himself later. We'll see. Christian does not draw well. He's got a Q, a bunch of consonants. He plays curb, making the Collins only 2 of KY for 22 points. As he mentioned here, he probably would have been a little bit better off exchanging down to something like ENR just because NNQ is so bad. Herianto does still have lithoed available, but this time he misses it again, playing EDH, which is the valid 3, instead of head, HED, which he played before, uses the same letters, but is actually a word and scores a little bit more. He scores 25 points. So Herianto is now on the board, and Christian has a pretty poor rack here once again. He plays egg. He could consider exchanging again here, even though he has the QU together. QUNN is pretty clunky. He's saying that neg is also slightly better. It probably is, just to unduplicate the ends. Both of those options are pretty bad. I think I would have actually gone with an exchange here personally, but okay. In any case, he goes with egg. Herianto draws the blank. He doesn't have a lot of bingos available here. The only one, I believe, is Violator from this V in levy with a blank R, which is a little bit tricky to spot. Herianto does miss it, instead playing the word Lu, which is not a bad play if you don't bingo. It's hard to score with only one-pointers, and he does at least get rid of both of his O's and keep a nice AIT blank leave. So not a terrible play there, and now Christian with still the Q and a lot of consonants. This is why, guys, I really would have liked to see an exchange earlier, just because without doing that, you really can get saddled with the Q for many turns in a row, and it really hampers your ability to make effective plays, but Christian does find a way to score a decent number of points here by playing Perns, P-U-R-N-S, for 38 points. And his comment here is pretty funny. Very, very risky play has to be done. Perns is indeed a phony. It's not a word, but I trust my phony ability still works here. And this is very risky, especially in the Collins Dictionary, where the challenge rule is different than it is in the American Dictionary. Of course, in the American game, if you lose a challenge, you lose your turn. If you challenge a valid word in a Collins game, you don't lose your turn, but it's only a 5-point penalty, which is far, far less severe than a turn. So that means people are generally more inclined to challenge in Collins, so that means it's a lot harder to get away with phonies. So a very risky play by Christian, but he does get away with it, scoring 38 points, still keeping the Q, but still not a bad play if it stays on the board. Of course, this was very, very dangerous, as if he lost a turn here and was saddled with all these consonants yet again, it would have been a disaster. Now, Herianto does have some bingos available here, the best of which would be to play Tabloid for over 90 points on a double-double here, hooking EL to make ELT. But he does, once again, miss his bingos, and he plays the word aid on the bottom right, which scores 16 points, but it does keep the B, so not the best play. But okay, let's keep moving. Christian still with the Q. Plays Frorn, F-R-O-R-N, for 24 points, keeping NQU. Now, this play here is, well, Frorn is valid, actually. It is a Collins only 5. However, you'll notice that Christian has hooked an N onto aid to make nade, which is not valid even in columns. So as a result, Haryanto challenges and it stays on the board. What happened? Christian gained 5 points for the penalty from Haryanto's challenge, but Nade isn't good, and it stayed on the board. So what happened? So this is really, really funny. As Christian explains here, phony skill number 2. Make a valid word that looks much, much weirder than your phony word to make opponent challenge the wrong word and leave your phony unchallenged. Haryanto did challenge, but he challenged Frorn, which is valid. So Haryanto challenged Frorn, but he didn't challenge Nade. And if he had challenged Nade or challenged both words, then it would have came off the board. But Haryanto didn't even flinch at Nade, which is the phony, instead challenging the valid word of Frorn, which does look weirder, as Christian mentions, but it is actually a word. So pretty wild stuff. Christian gets a 5-point bonus for playing a phony. I'm not sure I've ever seen that before. Pretty crazy stuff. And it gets better still, guys, so stay tuned. Haryanto with a few bingos here. They're a bit tricky. His best one would be to play obdurate with a blank R to this Ian Levy. There's also outbaked and possibly a few other bingos as well, but instead he plays Toad, keeping BU blank for 12 points. Christian here plays the word queen, which looks good for 42 points, finally getting rid of his Q, so it'll be nice to see Christian not have to deal with the Q anymore going forward. Haryanto does once again have an available bingo on his rack. He has abusive with a blank S, which would play making FE under Frorn. He does miss this, instead playing Ba and Bloob for 25 points. And Christian has now drawn the J after playing off his Q. He plays it off with Dojo, which is a pretty good play, scoring pretty well, and getting rid of the J, which he doesn't really want to have to deal with going forward if he doesn't have to. Haryanto once again has a bingo here that's playable. It's a little bit tricky to see, especially with VU on his rack. It would be unvoiced with a blank N in that same spot as before. Once again, playing under the F in Frorn right here. Haryanto would once again go on to miss his bingo, playing actually an exchange here, trading COUV, which I guess if you miss the bingo is not a terrible play just because you have a U and a V, and there really isn't much else to be done here. But in any case, Christian, now with a pretty commanding lead, he's up 108 points, plays Awe over here, which looks quite solid, scores pretty well, gets rid of his W. Haryanto now has drawn an S, but doesn't actually have a playable bingo here. He makes a nice play, though, with Ye, which scores really well, scores 37 points, and also sets up a strong bingo line under J to make J's on the 14th row over here while he holds an S and a blank. And as it turns out, it was also a really fortuitous play because it blocked Christian's bingo of culture, which he has on his rack. And Christian, instead of bingoing with culture, plays culture to this E in curb. And this is the turning point right here, guys, in the game. So on this turn, Haryanto has the fairly clunky-looking rack of EFIIPS along with the blank. And we've seen Haryanto miss many bingos in a row. We saw him play head HED as a phony 3 instead of bingoing. We saw several other bingos missed. We even saw him challenge the wrong word in a play that contained a phony. But he totally redeems himself here by slamming down specific for 185 points with a blank C across 2 triple word scores. So just an absolutely absurd sequence of events, like 5 missed bingos in a row, and then specific for 185. And just like that, Haryanto goes from down over 100 to having a 68-point lead. And let's just go back for a second here. This is a absolutely terrible play by Christian. You're up 100 points, and really what you need to do here, instead of playing culture, is just play something a bit shorter that doesn't open a triple-triple. So there is an obscure 6 available of Curule, C-U-R-U-L-E, which would place the C 1 square below the triple-triple line. That's a lot safer and still gets rid of both of the U's. You could also even just play something like Clue to this E over here, or even Lucky to this KY for a couple more points, which gets rid of one of the U's and just doesn't give nearly as much back to Haryanto. There's some other plays, too, that are reasonable through this U and Queen. So really just anything other than culture would have been somewhat reasonable play for Christian, but instead he plays culture and gets punished very severely and quickly. And I thought his reasoning here was a little bit strange as well. He writes, the reason that I dared to open this spot was that with a big gap, first off, if Haryanto made a regular 9-timer or triple-triple, then Christian would still have some room to breathe. And he says specifically regular triple-triple, not high-scoring one like this. But the thing is, if we go back to the position after culture, Christian's up 117. And pretty much any triple-triple is actually not going to leave Christian any breathing room. It's going to put Haryanto in the lead. For instance, let's say that instead of the F and the P, Haryanto had 2 additional 1-pointers. Well, in that case, he'd still be scoring 140 points for his triple-triple, and that would give him a 270 to 247 lead. So actually, this comment is just completely incorrect. Regardless of what triple-triple Haryanto plays, whether it scores 140, 185, or 300, Christian is not going to have any breathing room. He's going to be down. And also, I do just find the notion of a regular triple-triple as opposed to a high-scoring one kind of funny. Like, where do you draw the line? I feel like all triple-triples are very high-scoring, and I don't know, like, is a 140.1 regular and 185 is a high-scoring one? I don't know. So just kind of a strange and funny comment, I thought. But yeah, in any case, really just, you should do anything other than open a triple-triple when you have a lead of over 100 points like this. And he did get punished accordingly. And he actually gets punished again on this next turn because he has what looks like an amazing rack. He has Isatine, I-S-A-T-I-N-E, as a high prop 7 on his rack. But amazingly, that doesn't play, and he doesn't have anything available through the floaters on this board. So he has to just fish off his I with QI for 11. And Haryanto, with another very nice draw, drops his X for 50 points. He does have this really cool Collins-only bingo of more texts, which is super hard to see. But absolutely nothing wrong with just playing the X for 50 points. And Haryanto now, all of a sudden, in the span of 2 turns, goes from down 110 to up 110. So absolutely wild. But the game is not over yet, as Christian draws an H and bingos with Shaitan. He does miss Hesitant, which would have been slightly better. And Haryanto here really takes full control of the game by bingoing with Imarets and J's for 86 points. However, the game is still not over, because Christian finds an absolutely amazing play here with this rack of blank AILNOO. There are some bingos through this T, like location, that are reasonable, but he finds something much more stylish and also higher scoring. He plays Linalul for 69 points to this L in culture, making the Collins-only hook of EXO. So an amazing find by Christian here. The last thing you're thinking of naturally when you have this kind of rack, you already have an L and 2 O's. If you're playing through another L, is making the blank a third L. So really crazy word and an amazing find. And this time he does get another 5 points from Haryanto from the challenge. And the game is close. It's 405 to 451, but Haryanto's still firmly in command at this point. He's up 46 points. He's got a decent rack with the Z, and it's his turn. He makes the play of Zig in the bottom left, really just cementing the win, scoring 39 points. And Christian does score really well with View for 58, so he's still in striking distance. And Haryanto does indeed miss his outplay of Titan under the L and I of Linalul, which would end the game on the spot. It turns out Haryanto actually did see Titan, but wasn't sure if it was a valid word. So instead, he made a smart decision of just playing Feint here, which doesn't go out. It costs him a bit of spread, but it does secure the win. And Christian does the best he can, playing out with Cram. And the final score, Haryanto wins 506 to 481. So, what a game. I mean, we went from Christian being like almost guaranteed to win, it felt like, being up 120, to Haryanto being up 120 himself in the span of like 2 turns, and then Christian battling back with Shitan and then the amazing Linalul, but just not quite enough. So, I don't even know what else to say, guys. What a game. I mean, awesome commentary by Christian as well. Super entertaining. So shout out to him for posting this game, even though he was on the worst end of it. And yeah, I just couldn't resist making a video on this. I thought it was so funny between the way this transpired with starting with head as a phony 3 and then missing a bunch of bingos and then specific for 185. Just absolutely wild. And you know, that's part of why I love this game. You just never know what's going to happen. And I feel like that's part of why so many people are addicted to it and just keep playing, because you play enough times, you're going to see enough crazy stuff like this, and it's just so much fun when it happens. Even when you're on the receiving end of it, you kind of just have to laugh and appreciate it. So credit to Christian for doing that here, and yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all soon for the next one. Bye bye.